You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program so that we can bring you an emergency update from the city of Northport. I have a very special guest in the house, Mr. Mike Ryan. Mike Ryan, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Ryan, the emergency manager for the city of Northport.
And how long you been in the position, Mike?
I've been with the city for just about a year and a half, but I've been in the emergency management field about a little over 12 years now.
Awesome. Can you tell us what's going on within the city of Northport right now? Because we've kind of had a shift in the storm from the Venice direct hit now into the Englewood Northport direct hit.
Yeah, this storm has kind of given forecasters a fit. Basically, it started off well west of us, then slowly for each update, it kept moving east, and it's still moving back and forth. So it just goes to show this is why we never follow the black line, because the storm never follows the black line. Within the city of Northport, we're keeping our community aware of the changes as they come around, so they have the best information in the most timely manner, and we're letting them know what activities we are undertaking, such as opening up shelters in the area, providing services so they can be better prepared in terms of things they can do personally, also advising our businesses of how they can be better prepared for their staff, their personnel, and their customers, so that we can literally weather this storm together, understanding this is something we need to take very, very seriously. This is a powerful storm. This is one that hasn't impacted us, or this type of storm really hasn't impacted us for a very, very long time. And we have also a lot of new residents that this is their first experience with a hurricane. So we're trying to give them as much information as we possibly can, not trying to overwhelm them, but giving them information that they can use, information that they could put into place to help themselves and their families be better prepared as the storm approaches.
And really, you talked about the cone there a little while ago, but there's a direct line there, but that cone has about a 80-mile range, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. They call it the cone of error for a reason.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this storm is proving those points out, and it's really playing into why they have the cone at all.
So the importance of people in low-lying areas to get to a shelter.
Yes.
Really stay off the roads too.
Yes.
I heard one story today that there were about 125 miles of backup going into Miami.
Yes. Yes.
And go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And what we're trying to do, that why we put out a notice early today, because we wanted to give them the daylight hours to do this, understanding that there's a lot of traffic on the road. There's people moving in multiple different directions, and the storm changing and shifting tracks is not helping. So every time they seem like they're going in the right direction, something happens with the storm, so they change direction. So there's just a lot of traffic on the road. So we're trying to give people enough opportunity and enough time frame so they can make good decisions, get where they need to go in a timely manner, stay safe, and we'll get through the storm together.
The big thing for the citizens of Northport are they really need to understand that there are shelters opened up for a good reason, right?
Yes.
And I participated in the shelters the last time around. And we really do a great job within that whole section of this part of the plan, because the shelters are just one part of it, correct?
Right. Yeah, the shelters are a part of it, but the biggest thing is for our community is to be have options. So if they want to do something else, or they have different choices where they can do different activities to help be prepared. Sometimes they will go with family and friends. If they don't want to use a shelter, we do have the shelter. That's one option they can use as well. Some choose to leave the area, and which is fine. Helping them to understand also that they don't necessarily have to go hundreds of miles just to get out of harm's way. For this storm, you go 30, 40 miles inland or to the south, as that track changes, it might be enough. But again, the key is for them to always be aware, always paying attention to what the storm is doing, because it's very dynamic. It keeps changing, as we have seen. So that's why we give them different options. And sometimes they like to stay home. And if they can, if they have a well-built structure, and that's fine. If they're not in evacuation, that's fine. They can do that. They don't necessarily have to go to a shelter. Yes.
What zones are evacuating right now in Northport?
Right now, zones A and B are the current evacuation zones, and I think we've had good response on that. I've been out a little bit today, and the response to that has been very, very good. So very pleased with our community. They really heeded the advice that a lot of times from our communications department has been putting out some great kind of pre-storm information to kind of help them get ready for the storm and help them be prepared. So now that we're coming up to the final hour, they've pretty much taken the steps, and they've done very, very well. So we're very, very proud of our community and the way they responded and prepared for this.
So, we've had this warning up and down the coast, and they really thought it was heading towards that Tampa region. And I bring that up for a reason, is that people that were in Clearwater and all along those beach fronts, they've now relocated, and that has been part of the national news, how they have really taken off and gotten out of harm's way.
Yes.
People need to remember, though, that all of those vacationers, all of those people that were taking those hotels are now taking hotels towards Orlando and northward, correct?
Yes, they're taking pretty much, if they can find a hotel space within the state of Florida, they're taking it. It's a situation, and because, again, as you pointed out, this storm has changed so much that people are just grabbing, if there's a space available, they're going to take it just so they can be safe.
And I did an interview the other day with Wayne Saladay, and his suggestion was, if you're not in an evacuation zone, hunker down.
Right.
If you get in an evacuation zone, get out of it and get yourself safe. Find a location to go to.
Yes.
The key to that is to find your shelters, correct?
Yes, that's good advice. If you're in an evacuation zone, you need to evacuate. That's why we have them laid out. That's why they're laid out in such a manner that we understand that different storms come in different shapes and sizes. And so there's no one size fits all. That's why you see the various storms from the highest threat, from the A's, the B's, the C's, and moving on down. So if you're not in one of those evacuation zones that's been called, you're right. Find yourself a safe structure, stay prepared, making sure you have all your emergency kits, your water, your food, your standby, because chances are, as powerful as this storm is, you might lose good chance of you losing power for an extended period of time. So that's why we have battery powered radios, so you can continue to stay informed, but other things just to make the stay, not as comfortable, but as reasonable as you possibly can, because this is one thing that your main priority is to stay safe. And if you do that in your home, and it's a safe structure, and you're not in an evacuation zone, yes, that's very good advice. And please do so. Yes.
Well, and I know that the Public Works Department here in Northport does a tremendous job keeping our canals debris free so that we can get good water flow. This is exactly why we do those sort of things, isn't it?
Absolutely. They've been doing this for a couple of years now, in making sure that the canals have been free of debris, that the vegetation has been taken out of them, because, as you know, that's stuff grows in the canals, and they've been doing a really, really good job in terms of keeping them free so that they flow as they're intended, and they can absorb a whole lot of water. Now, of course, there are going to be times like this is probably going to be one of those events that your canal can only hold so much. And this is going to be a very, very heavy rainmaker. So flooding is going to be an issue. We know that. We understand that. That's just the nature of the storm. And there are no canals that can handle the amount of water that we're going to get. So there will be flooding, but the work that they have done has helped to minimize as much as possible the impact that flooding is going to have on our community.
And, we have a thing out there called King Tide, and it just happens to be right around this time of year, right?
Right. Yes, that king tide happens to go in. Again, this is where that timing all comes into play. The timing of the tide and the timing of the storm arrival with the storm surge all comes into play. And hopefully, when the storm does come on shore, the tide is out. That's our hope.
We really want it to be later in the evening.
Right.
7 o'clock o'clock is good. I'd like to see it around 9.
Yeah.
I don't want it to come any earlier. And, storms have a way of picking up momentum. And when you become a Cat 5, sometimes you pick up that speed out on the water. So I think our high tide is around that 3:30 mark, right?
I believe so, yes.
And that could be an overwhelming concern if we were at king tide and getting the hurricane at the same time, correct?
Yes, it's going to be one of those things. And this storm right now is becoming so powerful that we're going to get impacted, and that's just going to just kind of add on to it. I think the impacts are going to be significant, and that's just going to be, just another factor to add on to what's already going to be a significant event.
And I want to talk about the storm itself because it's so big around right now. And we've always been taught that you don't want to be on the south side, but there's a major concern with being on the north side of the storm with this particular storm, isn't there?
Yes. What you're seeing is that what they call the right front quadrant of the storm. In other words, the part that currently is heading in our area. That's the one that's going to be not only have hazards associated with the storm in of itself, but that's the area where you're likely to find the most tornado activity as well. So that's another concern that we have, because a lot of the tornado activity that's generated from hurricanes occurs in that right front quadrant. And unfortunately, we are going to be in that quadrant when the storm approaches.
And Northport is a direct line of contact at this point, along with Englewood. Right. But we've had that shift in the last, maybe 8 hours from the Venice area. So there's a good likelihood we could see that shift again, correct?
I'm all for it. And I'm doing all I can to pull that storm south. And that's
we want to bless our fellow.
No, we don't want that. We wanted to find a nice rural area where there isn't anybody. And it can make landfall there, and we'd be perfectly happy with that.
So I want to talk about the shelters here for a second, because we're very, very blessed here in Sarasota County to have so many shelters, where our friends down south in the Charlotte County region, they have a lot more difficulty with shelters because of the low-lying lands and really water frontage that they have that we don't have here. Can you talk about the citizens of Charlotte County and suggest what they should do while they're listening into this show also?
Sure. A lot of times is a lot of people in Charlotte have been through this before, and they found that they're leaving the area, heading, depending again where the storm is coming from. Generally, they'll go west or they'll go south, understanding that, as the storm comes on board, some of our communities, the Northport and some of the southern areas of the county, are taking up the shelters in here. So a lot of times what they'll do is seek shelters outside of Charlotte itself, but more inland and more to the south. That's generally where they head to. But again, it's the same routine for them, is understanding where their safe havens are going to be.
If this storm goes south, we still don't take deep breaths, do we?
Oh, no, because it's one of the things that we've always taught our community, and all our communities understand this fairly well, is, as many times as it shifts one way, it could automatically shift another way. And a perfect example of that was Charlie. When Charlie was going up the coast, all of a sudden Charlie decided to make a right-hand turn. And it was a very drastic right-hand turn. So there's nothing to say this storm won't suddenly change in a direction. It could be favorable, could not be favorable. Only the storm knows at this point. But that's one of the things we always make sure that we're prepared for the worst impact. If we don't get it, great. But if we do, we'll be as ready as we possibly can.
So I had this phone call from a friend of mine earlier today, and he wanted to know how to get out. I gave him instructions on how to get out, but I also told him there's two really key factors. The first thing is you got to be safe first. You got to find a place to hunker down local. Right. And if you're trying to get out, then figure out a game plan to get out and have a place to go to.
Absolutely. And make sure that you tell somebody, whether it be friends or family, whatever, let them know what you're going to do, where you're going to be, where you're headed, because family and friends who are not in the area become concerned, and rightly so. And so letting them know kind of eases some of their burden, so they know you're going to be safe. They know you're taking action. They know you're doing something. Instead, they're not left wondering, is he or is she, or will they or won't they? That way, when you share the plan, they have a way to get in contact with you if they need to, and they know you're safe. And like you said, safety is always the first priority.
It is. What's the city doing right now to ensure services to our citizens?
Basically, what we're trying to do is secure our facilities. We come up with plans, and depending on the impact of the storm itself, we have crews standing by to respond very, very quickly, to get out as soon as they are able to do so in a safe manner, to help clear roads. We have several teams staged throughout the city to make sure all the roadways are cleared. We have the Public Works Department is making sure all our facilities will be in good shape, so that when the storm passes, we are able to, again, open to our community. And if not, we will have an alternate plan for how we will still provide services. It may not be in the traditional way, but one of the things we've learned through COVID is that we have learned how to adapt from doing stuff the traditional way. So that's one of the things that we have learned that lesson, and we're able to implement some options to make sure we maintain the level of service that we want to provide to our community.
If people were wanting to engage with the city, how should they do that?
Basically, they can call our information line if they have information that they want to share or they want to gain. And our information line is 941-4. Not 429-7000. I wanted to want to make sure I got the first three numbers right, because mine are different. It's 429-7000 goes. I always mess that up, and I want to make sure I got it right this time.
Yeah, 429-7000.
Yes,
is the key, and people should write that number down. Yes. Have that number readily handy. The other thing is you've got a command center set up right now, don't you, at City Hall?
Yeah, yes, sir. We have all of our key representatives from all our departments are here, ready to respond. We always bring them in before the storm. So we do this for their safety, because we don't want anybody, just like we tell our public, we practice what we preach. We want to get to our safe place early. And so we have brought them all in. So they're all here now. And they are preparing for the storm and preparing to respond to whatever the storm brings our way.
And there is a key word that we've all learned through these things, and that's hunker down. When would you tell people to stop leaving their home and hunker down?
It's getting to the point now where you're going to start seeing some of the winds start to pick up this evening. So it's one of those, if you're not where you want to be, get there very quickly. Because the situation and the environment is going to deteriorate, and when it does, it's going to do so very quickly. So I would hope that if you're not there now, be there very, very soon.
Do you think that Northport's going to feel, at this point, do you think Northport is going to feel more of a dramatic hit than they did with Charlie?
I think so. The way this storm has grown, this is a much bigger storm than Charlie was. It's more intense. It's covering more area. Therefore, we're going to be in it longer. So Charlie was a fairly small. He was a quick mover. This one's not being abnormally slow, but it's just so much larger than Charlie that it's just going to take that additional time just for the storm itself to pass through the area, simply because of its size. I
know that they were talking about the shearing effect if it went north further. And yep. Unfortunately, we're not blessed with warmer water north. Yeah. We've got that pool of warm water in that Cape Coral region, and we're kind of at that tip of that, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And one of the things about this season is, up until this point, it has been so quiet. There have been no storms or fronts or anything to stir up that water to help cool it down. So it's just been sitting there, getting warmer and warmer. And unfortunately, Ian is taking full advantage of that situation.
And that, as I talked about on the show the other day, and I know Rich Suggs has had guests on his show doing the same thing. We're just trying to get this information out. But that warm water and the fact that it hasn't been churned up that warm water really ignites that hurricane, doesn't it?
It does. That is the fuel that the hurricane lives for. That's why a lot of times when you see hurricanes come on shore, they lose their intensity very, very quickly. That's because they are leaving their fuel source, which is that very, very warm water.
Well, and I the more I've watched this one, I tend to believe it's going to get dragged further south just because that pool of warm water is right there. And really, I think the heart of it is the Cape Coral region. And there is an area there between Cape Coral and Punta Gorda that does have less population that would be nice for it.
Yes, that would be ideal. No population would be absolutely perfect. And we would love for Ian to go visit that location. Yes.
So right now, everybody should be on guard. Everybody should have their family notified of where they're at, what they're doing, what their game plan is. I'll just let mine know because I know they're watching. I'm staying right here and I'm hunkered down already, and I've got more than about 2 weeks worth of food. And if the food goes bad, I got secrets stashed so we could survive if we had to on the powdered food and water.
Yep, that's it's one of those things where you really don't want to have to go through this situation, but at the end of it, you want to be able to come out the other end as a survivor, and you realize, well, that was not fun, but this is something, if we prepare well enough, we can make it through this, and I think our community has done that, and I think we will come out on a positive note as we come through, Ian, and get it out of our system, get it out of the way.
I really appreciate your time. I know you got really busy things to do. Is there an opportunity that we can talk tomorrow, possibly around 10?
Sure, we can do that.
Awesome. So everybody that's listening now, get another update tomorrow at 10 from the city of Northport, Mr. Mike Ryan. I truly appreciate everything you're doing. Give everybody at City Hall a thumbs up. And I hope that our command center stays quiet for the next 72 hours.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yes, I hope what I bring to you tomorrow is very, very boring.
Me too. I would like to fall asleep during your interview.
That would be great.
All right. Well, have a blessed night. Get some rest, and let's all pray for a great day tomorrow.
That sounds like a plan, John. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. This is John with WKDW Real Talk 97.5 saying thanks and have a great night. And just as we do that, all of our phones are going off. So
there you go.
Have a good night. We'll talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So just the listeners online right now, Mike's leaving the studio, and we really appreciated everything he was doing. But please check out the listings that I have here. If you need a shelter, go to a shelter. Don't hesitate to find your way to a shelter. They're fantastic. If you're not hunkered down in your home right now and ready to go, you've got time to get to a shelter. Northport High School, the middle schools, the elementary schools, they're all opened up. If you have any situations whatsoever, you can actually call 941-429-7000. Get a hold of somebody at the command center, and they will direct you exactly what you need to do. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll bring you another broadcast. Please join Rich Suggs throughout the rest of the evening and into tomorrow. We're trying to get Wayne Saladay back on. And as soon as I get that word, I'm going to put that out on Facebook and push it out to everybody so that we can get Wayne Saladay to give us a broader view of what he thinks now. I do have a text message out to him right now, so keep that in mind. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a blessed day. Be careful out there.